10.
Now at 10, some results are in and some races are now final as Election Day comes to an end. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Madeline Bierster. We start with one of the biggest races of the night, Midland County Sheriff. Here's a look at those results tonight. Since there are no Democratic challengers, when the race is over, the next sheriff will be decided. Running for the seat is current Sheriff David Kreiner, former MCSO Chief Deputy Rory McKinney, and son of former Sheriff Gary Painter, Justin Painter. Right now, Rory McKinney with 33% of that vote, David Kreiner with 51% of the vote. He will be the next Midland County Sheriff. And with Kreiner in the lead, let's go out to our Mike Mahoney at Kreiner's watch party tonight. Mike, what's the room like there?
Hey there, Maddie. I am here at La Mission in Midland celebrating. Well, I'm not celebrating, but everybody here is celebrating Sheriff David Kreiner's victory. As you can see, it is still a pretty lively scene. And we're at a Mexican restaurant post 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. That's how excited everybody is about Sheriff Kreiner's victory. He didn't have a chance to come on air with me right now, but I did have a brief interview with him. And he said he's just thankful that the race is over behind him. He is excited to get back on the job for a second term. And he said the best part about being sheriff here in Midland County, it's the people. He loves protecting them. He loves serving them. He's not doing this because it's a hobby. He's doing it because he is passionate about it. And I think he is excited to get back in there for another term. Of course, you can see that interview with David, the newly elected Sheriff Kreiner on yourbasin.com, also on Good Morning Basin. But for now, live in Midland, I'm Mike Mahoney, ABC Big 2 News.
Thanks for that, Mike. Exciting atmosphere there. Here's a look at Justin Painter's watch party earlier. Painter is the son for former Midland County Sheriff Gary Painter, who passed away back in 2020. Here's a look at the Rory McKinney's watch party tonight. McKinney was the deputy chief under Gary Painter. He has since remained in law enforcement. That's not the only race in Midland we have our eyes on tonight. Voters are deciding who will be the next district attorney as well. Current DA Laura Nodolph announced late last year she would not be seeking re-election. Two Republicans are going head-to-head for that seat, Kyle A. McCardle and Glenn Harwood. With 95% reporting, Glenn Harwood is in the lead with 66% of the vote. Also in Midland, the current sitting county attorney, Republican Russell Malm, is running for re-election unopposed. The county attorney represents the state in prosecuting misdemeanor criminal cases. Malm wins this race, of course, with 100% of the vote, 95% precincts reporting. There are several Midland County Commissioners seats that were up for a vote tonight as well. Let's look at some of those. The major duties of the Commissioners Court involves the overseeing and budgetary and policy-making functions of county government. Commissioners have extensive responsibilities related to the building and maintenance of county roads. The Midland County Commissioner position for Precinct 1 is up for a vote. Right now, it's a race between Republicans Charles Hall and Terry M. Luck. This comes after current Commissioner Scott Ramsey announced he would not be seeking re-election. With 94% of that vote, or precincts reporting 84%, 59% of that vote goes to Charles Hall. That's just a few of the many results we have for you tonight. But first, let's take a look at the forecast with our chief meteorologist, Chase Menendez. And Chase, it has been such a good day weather-wise to get out and vote. Voting season in full swing.
Yeah, and really nice conditions here in full swing, too. It almost feels like spring is in full swing with our temperatures coming in way above average for this time of the year. 76 degrees, our high temperature here in Odessa and Midland. Now, 68 is the normal temperature that we typically expect for the time of the year. But overall, we've just been coming in above average for a long time now, and I'm certainly not complaining. Now, as we do get into tomorrow, we will see a lot more cloud cover begin to roll in from the north, and that is going to be affecting our conditions minimally. That could bring us some rain chances as we get on through the rest of the evening time tomorrow and into Thursday morning. But for the most part, I really don't expect a whole lot of changes to these nice mild temperatures. And low temperatures will similarly come in through the 40s by tomorrow morning, which is also pretty good news there. Now stay with us, though. We do have some more changes coming for this week to talk about. I'll be sure to break down the details. First, back to you, Madeline.
All right, let's jump right back into those results with the biggest race on the ballot across the state and the country, the presidential primary. Here's a look at the results for the Democratic presidential candidate. Incumbent and current sitting president Joe Biden, Marianne Williamson, Dean Phillips, and Armando Perez Serrato. Joe Biden with 86% of that vote, only 19% precincts reporting. Also on the Democratic ticket is Frankie Lozada, Cenk Uygur, and Star Locke, who is not pictured here, along with Gabriel A. Cornejo. Each polling around 1% of the vote. Meanwhile, on the Republican side, here's a look at those results. Former President Donald Trump with 77% of the vote. So far, 23% precincts reporting, along with Nikki Haley with 17.4% of the vote, Asa Hutchinson, and Chris Christie. Also on the ballot, David Stuckenberg, Ryan L. Binkley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Ron DeSantis, coming in at just 1.66% of the vote. So with those numbers, here's a look at the two candidates that are leading the race so far. Again, not official, but 86% for Joe Biden and 77% on the Republican side for Donald Trump. Looks like they'll face off for president come November. Now let's take a look at the biggest races across Texas, starting with U.S. Senator. The Democratic winner will face off against the Republican winner in the November election. Here's a look at who's running on the Democratic ticket. Mary Gomez, Helly Rodriguez-Perlman, and Colin Allred. Right now, Colin Allred with 60% of the vote, 23% of that vote totally in right now. Mark Gonzalez, Carl Oscar Sherman, and Terry Tichenko. 8% for Mark Gonzalez, around 3% for Carl, and 1.4% for Terry Tichenko. Along with Roland Gutierrez and A. Robert Hassan, not pictured, is Democratic candidate Stephen Keogh. Roland Gutierrez with about 16% of the vote, and Robert Hassan with about 2%. Same with Stephen Keogh. Here's a look at who is up for that seat on the Republican ticket. Incumbent and sitting Senator Ted Cruz is facing off against R.E. Rufus Lopez and Holland Red Gibson, who's not pictured here. Right now, with 89% of the vote, Ted Cruz with only 25% precincts reporting so far. A seat on the Railroad Commission is also up for a vote. Despite the name, the RRC issues rules and regulations from the oil and gas industry and is heavily involved in environmental impacts of oil and gas production. Here's a look at Democrat candidates for that seat, Bill Burch and Catherine Colbert. With 66% of the vote, Catherine Colbert so far looks like she's going to win this race. Right now, only 25% precincts reporting. As far as Republican candidates, Christy Craddock is running for another term, facing off against James Matlock and Christy Clark, who is not pictured here. Christy Craddock leads with 53% of the vote. Of course, only 25% reporting so far. Also running are Petra Reyes and Corey Howell, each with around 5% of the vote so far. Let's turn now to the different races for state representatives in our area. Starting with District 53. The Texas House District includes Pecos, Crane, Upton, and Crockett counties. The Democratic candidate that's guaranteed to be on the ballot in November is Joe P. Herrera. Herrera will take on the winner of this race. On the Republican ticket are Hatch Smith and Wes Verdell. Right now, Wes Verdell with 58% of that vote. Hatch Smith coming in with 41%. Right now, only 21% of that vote totally in. Also up for a vote in West Texas, the state representative for District 72. That includes Howard, Glasscock, and Reagan counties. Two Republicans are facing off, incumbent Drew Darby and newcomer Stormy Bradley. Right now, newcomer Stormy Bradley with 47% of the vote, Drew Darby with about 52%, 21% total precincts reporting right now. Now, if one of them wins with more than 50% of the vote, they will automatically assume that position. And now to the race for Texas State Representative District 82. That includes Midland, Martin, and Dawson counties. Democrat Stephen Schaefersman is guaranteed to be on the ballot in November. He will face off against the Republican, that's Tom Craddock. When they go head-to-head in November, Craddock has represented the area since 2022, when he originally ran unopposed. For District 81, local representative Brooks Landgraf is running unopposed. He will automatically assume that seat. District 81 includes Ector, Winkler, Ward, and Loving counties. Speaking of Ector County, there are several faces that were decided on before voters even walked into polling locations. In Ector County, the 161st District Judge, Justin Wayne Lowe, is seeking re-election. The Republican was elected into office back in 2020. Current Ector County District Attorney Dusty Gallivan is also running again. The Republican was elected to his seat in 2022. Ector County Sheriff Mike Griffiths is also running unopposed. This would be the Republican's third term. He started his career with ECSO back in 1998 as a reserve deputy. Speaking of the position of sheriff, there are two big sheriff seats that are up for a vote tonight across West Texas, one in Howard County and one in Crane. In the race for Howard County Sheriff, Republican incumbent Stan Parker is running unopposed. Parker was initially elected to the position back in 2020. In the race for Crane County Sheriff, Andrew R. Aguilar is running. Also known as Andy, the incumbent is running unopposed as well. Earlier today, before the polls closed, we were able to speak to some of the voters out there making their voices heard today.
Important that we get our vote in and speak our mind. Vote for change this year. We definitely need it.
A lot of the people who, if you vote today, you're making a choice of who you want to be elected, basically. So I think it's really important people get out, express their opinion.
Some races are going to make an impact across the state for voters, just like the ones you heard from there. There are 12 state propositions that voters decided on tonight. Let's take a look. Here's a look at Proposition 1. If passed, Proposition 1 declares that Texas should eliminate all property taxes without increasing Texas's overall tax burden. Right now, that looks like that did pass with 59% of the vote. And for Proposition 2, if passed, it will declare that Texas should create a border protection unit and deploy additional state law enforcement and military forces to seal the border and to use physical force to prevent illegal entry and trafficking and to deport illegal aliens to Mexico or their nations of origin. Right now, 59% are for, only 8.7% against Prop 2. Here's a look at those results that we just mentioned. It looks like that one is going to pass. If passed, Proposition 3, though, declares the Texas legislature should require the use of E-Verify by all employers in Texas to protect jobs for illegal workers by preventing the hiring of illegal aliens. Right now, it's looking like it will pass with 59% of the vote for and only 9% of the vote against. If passed, Proposition 4 declares the Texas legislature should end all subsidies in public services, including in-state college tuition and enrollment in public schools for illegal aliens. Right now, it's looking like that's going to pass as well. 59% of the vote, around over 1 million votes, and only 11% against. If passed, Proposition 5 declares Texas urges the United States Congress not to grant any form of amnesty or pathway to legalization for illegal aliens. Right now, it's looking like that will pass as well, with 59% of the vote for and 15% against. Proposition 6 declares the Texas legislature should prohibit the deployment of the Texas National Guard to a foreign conflict unless Congress first formally declares war. Looks like that one's going to pass as well, with 59% of the vote, only 15% against. If passed, Proposition 7 declares the Texas legislature should establish authority within the Texas State Comptroller's Office to administer access to gold and silver through the Texas Bullion Depository for use as legal tender. Here's a look at those results. Right now, 24% nay, 59% yay. Looks like that's going to pass as well. If passed, Proposition 8 declares the state of Texas should ensure that Texans are free to give or to withhold consent for any vaccine without coercion. Here's a look at those results. 59% for, 8% against. Looks like that's going to pass as well. Now to Proposition 9. It declares the Republican Party of Texas should restrict voting in the Republican primary to only registered Republicans. Here's a look at those results. Right now, it's looking like it will pass with 59% of the vote for and 25% against. If passed, Proposition 10 declares the Texas Constitution should be amended to restore authority to the Texas Attorney General to prosecute election crimes. Here's a look at those results. Right now, it's looking like that will pass with over 1 million votes, 59% for. Now let's take a look at Proposition 11. It declares Texas parents and guardians should have the right to select schools, whether public or private, for their children, and the funding should follow the student. Right now, here's a look at those results. It's looking like that will pass as well. 59% of the vote yay and 21 for nay. If passed, Proposition 12 declares the Texas Constitution should be amended to require proof of citizenship before any individual can be registered to vote. In Texas law, you can get a driver's license while not being a citizen of the U.S. Here's a look at those results. Right now, it's looking like that will pass with over 1.2 million votes, 59% yay. If passed, Proposition 13 declares Texas should ban the sale of Texas land to citizens, governments, and entities from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. Here's a look at those results. Right now, that's looking like that will pass. Almost 1.2 million votes for that one, for 59%. You can get a full picture of everything that was up for a vote tonight right now on yourbasin.com. Also, be sure to download the Your Basin app to get breaking news alerts and updates sent straight to your phone.